When you first become president, one of the questions that people ask you is, what's really going on at Area 51? I think I just became the first president to ever publicly mention Area 51.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
I had people go look at the records on Area 51 to make sure there was no alien down there. I had all the Roswell papers reviewed, everything.
If you saw that there were aliens there, would you tell us?
Yeah.
You would?
I mean, if there's some huge national security thing and I can't get agreement to open them, I won't. But I do want to open them because I'm interested.
You believe?
I don't know. But there are enough stories out there that I don't think everybody is just sitting, in their kitchen making them up. I think that people see things. What they see, I don't know.
That certain morning, I happened to look over into the sky to the northeast, and I seen a very, very bright light up there, like a very bright star. And then I said, well, that's moving. And I just stood there and watched it as what it was doing, and it was just coming down out of the sky real slow, and no noise, just quiet, and I couldn't see no wings or nothing, just floating right through the midair up there. And I thought, well, if I don't tell nobody that I seen something go over town tonight, nobody will believe me tomorrow.
What's up, guys? How's it going out there tonight? I hope everyone is doing well. Those of you that will catch it live with us tonight, those of you that will watch it later, sure do appreciate your support. All right, guys, I am very, very excited for tonight's show, not only for the great guests that I have lined up and backstage waiting to go, but also it is the first show that I am doing as a Paranormal Odyssey host. It's actually the first live show I'm doing as the host of Paranormal Odyssey. I've already got a couple of podcasts out. Third one will be this Sunday coming out, which will be this show. So, got pretty good reviews, getting some good feedback thus far, and I absolutely appreciate it. I'm enjoying myself. All right, guys, before we get started, hit that subscribe button if you don't mind. I sure would appreciate it. And like always, guys, if you have an encounter that you would like to share, paranormal-wise, UFO, ghost, witchcraft, psychic, medium, anything like that. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, and I'm not leaving out Bigfoot, I'm not abandoning the big hairy guy by any means. So, we'll still be talking about him and other cryptids. So, if you have had an encounter, instead of getting me at the Unscripted, you can get me at Wayne at ParanormalWorldProductions.com. So just shoot me a message over there, and I'll get in contact with you to set something up. Also, guys, I'm the founder, president, and still run the Manimal Research Group. Got the Facebook over there, Manimal Research on Facebook. So if you have not already joined over there, you're welcome to come and become a member. We would appreciate it. All right, guys, got a great show lined up tonight. Got Alan Steinfeld on. He is a producer and an author, producer of the YouTube show New Realities. He's going to come and hang on, and if you guys have any, he's going to come and hang out, I'm sorry. If you guys have any questions at all that you want to ask Alan, please feel free to do so. Type those in, but if you would, put them in all caps for me. I ask every week. Continue to ask because it just makes life a little bit easier on me. If I can see those in all caps, I can get to them quicker. So, got questions for Alan, shoot them this way and put them in all caps. All right, guys. Also, check out our website, ParanormalWorldProductions.com. You can find this show on there, the blog, and past episodes. You can also find Sasquatch Odyssey and True Crime Odyssey. I'm glad to announce that there's going to be maybe a couple of changes coming with the True Crime show. I'm a big True Crime fan myself, so might be some changes coming in that show as well. So yeah, guys, check out the website paranormalworldproductions.com. All right, we got all of that out of the way. Yeah, guys, like I said, I'm excited about the show tonight. It's primarily been a Bigfoot show, for the almost 3 years that have been doing this show, but I have stepped out a few times and done some other shows. I've done a couple of UFO shows, actually, and some other cryptids. And that's what's going to be cool about this new adventure on Paranormal Odyssey is going to be doing a little bit of everything. And tonight is a good example of that. We got Mr. Alan Steinfeld on. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He can correct me in just a minute if not. But yeah, Alan is very, very big in the UFO community. And he's going to come on and talk about some of his stuff. So, guys, I'm sure you're tired of listening to me and ready to get to our guest. So, if you would, please welcome Mr. Alan Steinfeld. Am I pronouncing that right, sir? You're muted.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yes, Feld, F-E-L-D. But I don't think we even need names. You think Bigfoot has names for each other?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't had an opportunity to ask one yet.
Well, I think it's more vibration. I think it's all vibration. I wonder if Bigfoot even has a language. I mean, or are they just telepathic, like dolphins?
There's reports of both. When we get done here, and if you're interested in that, look up the Sierra sounds and listen to that. There have been some studies behind that lead us to believe that they do have a language and they do communicate.
Oh,
So,
really? I didn't know that. I didn't realize that people actually discovered that, because I know dolphins and whales have a language, and much more complex than humans. We only admit one sound at a time. That is so boring for a dolphin. They could admit 4 sounds at once. Makes them much more multidimensional, much more sophisticated, higher intelligence, greater perception. So, if we want to look for the mysterious animals on the planet, let's look to the dolphins and whales, and of course Bigfoot and all our friends out in space.
yeah. Well, Alan, tell us a little bit about what you do and what got you started in this field.
Well, I want to say I wrote this book called Making Contact, which is a collection of essays by the people in the field that I would say are the best, brightest, most researched, most experienced people. So I've been interested in UFOs since my own experience in 1987. I went to all the conferences, everything. I am hearing a little feedback though. I wonder if that's me. But anyway, I went to all the conferences, met all the people, and I was obsessed. I'm still obsessed with the subject because nobody actually has the answer to what's really going on. It's like Bigfoot. Nobody knows really what's going on. Why are they here? Who are they? It's the same thing for these ships. But there's more evidence actually that they are here. There's footage. I mean, I saw a ship just a couple of months ago in Massachusetts. Something flew right over my group, silent. We called them in. We asked for an appearance. They appeared, and I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe they've actually showed up." So it's strange when you get what you asked for, and then it's like you don't believe you actually got what you asked for. It's like, so anyway, I've been obsessed with the subject because I want to know what happened to me in my abduction. People can read about this. I'll talk a little bit about this. Making Contact it's my essay about my experience, but also people like Linda Moulton Howe, Whitley Strieber, Nick Pope, Grant Cameron, JJ and Desiree Hurtak. They've written an original essay because I wanted to ask people I felt were the best to explain what's going on. What is the process of making contact? And nobody agrees what the process. Everyone's kind of seeing it through their own little framework, and so everyone sees the phenomena differently. So there's no common agreement, which I put together in this book because the reader has to decide what's really going on. Like in your opening, you have all those presidents talking, right? You have Obama and Clinton and Hillary Clinton, and they don't know what to say about this. There's been a huge suppression of information, I'm sure you know, by the government. They do not want to speak the truth. So we, the public, are really left in the dark to understand what's going on. Who's here? What do they want from us? How are humans involved? And I think if we put enough of these pieces together with some of the expert advice, not advice, but expert kind of insights into the phenomena, then maybe we get a sense of it. Like Grant Cameron. Have you heard of Grant Cameron?
No, sir, I haven't.
He was a Canadian. He's a Canadian researcher who used to study politics, and U.S. presidents' actually involvement with the phenomena. But one day he said it's not about hardware. It's not about presidents. How much it involves consciousness and the shift of consciousness. I mean, meaning we're here to think differently. Like everyone lives in a very small little box because of our conditioning. These ETs or whatever they are, or even Bigfoot, they take us out of our box and they say, "Oh my God, there's more to reality than I've been told," and that's the activation of the greater mind. They say, go ahead.
No, I've said I can't agree with you more. I've said several times. People are probably tired of hearing me say it. Those that follow the show, that there's no such thing as a Bigfoot expert. I don't care what anybody says.
Right.
Until we have these things in captivity and can actually study them, and it's just there's no such thing as an expert. Do you feel kind of the same way with UFO?
Exactly the same way. There's a lot of people who know a lot, even inside the government, but no one has put together all the pieces of it. How can a solid metal ship suddenly turn into smoke and just vaporize? I mean, they've seen this. They have videos of this. How do these ETs move through walls? How do they read our minds? How do they send thoughts? How do they move abductees through walls and windows? Why are they doing this? Some people say it's for our genetics, and I happen to think that might be true, but there's no one who has the whole picture. Like, we're looking at their technology from crash retrievals, but we're never going to understand the technology until we understand how they think. It's like you can pick up an iPhone, but if you don't know anything about buttons or technology, it's meaningless. So the same thing, we have to understand the level of mind or consciousness or intelligence. And I think we're capable of it, but again, we have to get over our very limited programming has stopped us from thinking outside the box.
I agree. I agree.
So,
now, you brought up a couple times your first experience back in the 80s. When was that? And can you walk us through that?
Yeah. But before I do that, I just want to say you're right about Bigfoot, because Bigfoot, I feel, is they're smarter than humans. They have bigger brains. And I think, and I'll tell you my story in a second, but I think Bigfoot, Yetis, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call them, and this is just my theory, and I'm glad I'm on your show to talk about this, because I can't talk about this on any other show. But I think we hear about Neanderthals, and I think my guess is that these are Neanderthals, Yetis, Bigfoot. They are Neanderthals that evolved beyond this dimension because they had bigger brains. They were smarter. They became interdimensional, and they and will never actually get a Yeti captured because they don't want to be captured. They don't want to get involved with human beings because we're very primitive people. We shoot them. We, because we don't know what something is. You shoot it. That's not a good reason to shoot something. So, because they're interdimensional, because they can smell human beings miles and miles away, I just feel like that's true because they have an incredible sense of smell. We're never going to get close to them unless they want us to and can feel it's okay. But of course, we're wiping out more of their places to live. So I don't know, maybe they go to the inner earth or something like that. But
You
they're
know, for
definitely.
somebody that doesn't really follow them that much, you're hitting on a lot of the key stuff, the arguments in the field right now.
Well, if you're involved with UFOs, ETs, you have to kind of branch out and kind of look at all the mysteries. I was at that, there was a museum in Portland, Maine. That's a crypto museum. So I did pick up some stuff, but it's just my own understanding about who these creatures are. I interviewed this guy. I have my own interview show. He wrote a book called Psychic Sasquatch. Do you know who he is? He talks. He's
What's
in
his name?
Laertes or something. Psychic Sasquatch. If you look that up,
Okay.
he'd be a great guest for your show. But he said they're very psychic. They were communicating with him psychically. I don't know if that's true or not, but being around the field and just tuning into them, I can see that they are somehow in this world but not of this world. And the same thing is true for ETs, extraterrestrials. Or, I mean, we're calling these things extraterrestrials, but the truth is we don't really know what they are. Yeah, there are ships and things, but there really is no expert on UFOs or ETs. There's a lot of people who say they are. All I know is my experience, which happened in 1987. That's not all I know. I've had hundreds of books on the subject, but I think I know something. But from my experience, I was driving cross country with a girlfriend, and we were tired from driving. When you go cross country, you just want to get in as much mileage as you can every day. And we were driving about 12 hours from Oregon across Idaho into western Nebraska. We're really tired. So we pulled off the road down this little deserted road just to kind of go to sleep in this van. And we just passed out. Maybe we passed out because we were tired, or maybe something else happened. But I have to say, just went right to sleep. I hardly ever go right to sleep. In the morning, we woke up in the same position we went to sleep in. I don't know. I don't even know how I remember that, but it was as we were like frozen or suspended animation. We went to sleep and then woke up. It's odd to even say it, but I don't know. I've never had that happen. You toss and you turn, and she remembers the same thing. I hadn't seen her in a while, and I talked to her about my book coming out, and because I mentioned her in the story, and she loved it, and she goes, I wrote about that time we were traveling, and she goes, the night we were frozen. That's how she put it. But yeah, but it's really like not so much frozen cold, but we're suspended, and we're frozen or suspended in time space. So, okay, we continue our journey, and then I notice on the back of my abduction story is not as dramatic as, let's say, Whitley Strieber's or a lot of. It's not ordinary, but doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles. But I did notice on the back of my leg back of my knee. And when's the last time you looked at the back of your knee, Wayne? Right? Well, someone pointed it out to me. Look, what are those 4 marks? Four dots. It looked like a square, like 4 prongs in the back of I think people say it's usually on the left side, but I think it was the right knee, the back joint, So I said, I don't know, it must be a spider bite or something like that. I don't know. I didn't know what it was. Maybe I was, but I did when I got back to New York. I asked some people involved in Bud Hopkins' intruders group. You know who Bud Hopkins? Have you heard of him? He he actually he's the author of this book, Missing Time. And Bud Hopkins is really the godfather or the founder of the abduction scenarios. He didn't discover that, but Bud was the first person to put together the fact that there seems to be patterns in UFO abductions. So I didn't see Bud at that point, but I saw someone in his group. I said, "What do you think of this?" She goes, "Oh yeah, that's an abduction star," and that immediately kind of freaked me out. It's like, really? It's like I didn't remember being abducted, but I did remember that night. I immediately flashed to that point in time where that was the only time I could have had something happen. Eventually, I was regressed, hypnotized back to that moment. And I have to say, when people talk about regressions and hypnotic regressions in UFO abductions, because the reason you don't remember it, well, there's two reasons. One is that it's such a trauma to your ordinary reality, and people don't remember traumas. They disconnect, they disassociate. So that's one level. The other possibility is that the ETs don't want you to remember it, so they wipe your memory clean. And it's probably a combination of both those things. But when I was regressed, I did remember. Remember is not a good word because you don't really remember. Like I remember what I did yesterday, what I had for breakfast this morning. It's you don't remember. You can't remember something you're not really present for consciously. So these memories, if you want to call them, come from another part, the subconscious, where the images came to me, and a lot of trauma victims talk about or traumatized people, but it's not like you're remembering because there's an immediate disassociation. Like imagine, Wayne, you're in your room, it's night, maybe you're with your partner or not, the doors are locked, the windows are closed, and you're kind of sleeping very peacefully. Suddenly somebody or something is in your room at the foot of your bed looking at you, and you just wake up like startled but it's more than startled. This being of a different consciousness. It's like the Yetis. The Yetis are of a different consciousness. That's why they're so elusive, because they know our minds, but we don't know their minds. And I think the ETs are the same way. And there's also the relationship between ETs and Yetis that people talk about, like there's been ships seen around Yetis. Yeah, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I do. We got a question from the audience. I do want to get to before we get any further.
Yeah.
Carson is asking, "Do they live among us?" I guess he's speaking of ETs.
You know, what are these things that are coming in and out of our reality? I would say they're in the world but not of the world, or of the world but not in the world. There's dimensional realities, like well, one simple way to describe it is when you look at a fan that's going at really really high speeds, and you're not seeing the blades of the fan anymore because they're moving so fast. I think there's vibrational differences between us and them, so they can lower their vibration and come into our world. So they probably are in this world. I think the key to understanding all of this is vibration, frequency, um, rates of molecular speed. So when you can vibrate your molecules quicker, and maybe advanced beings can do that because they will themselves to. They're no longer in this visible world. They become more fourth dimensional or higher dimensional, but they can see our world. they could see us, but we can't see them because we've been so brainwashed. So the answer to that question is yes, I think they're here and around us. And I mean, the universe is so vast. There's planets around every star out there, and there are more stars in all the galaxies and all the grains of sand and all the beaches in the world. I mean, just imagine that. That's what there's trillions of galaxies with trillions of stars. And each of those stars have planets. I mean, I think you don't necessarily need to have a planet to have life. I mean, maybe there's life forms on these stars, on our sun. I mean, life doesn't have to look carbon based. I mean, I think consciousness is the key to life. And I think consciousness transcends the body. So all these people that we have known who've passed over, did they go anywhere? Are they still here? I mean, are they still conscious? I would think that they are. I think that they don't just get absolved into like the super forever. I think there's still individuality that happens. So the answer is yes, Carson. Yes, I think they are.
Okay. Man, that's scary to think about, isn't it? That one of them could be walking around, with this. That's something.
What's scary about that, though? Why is that scary?
I guess scary might not be a good word. Interesting. That's really interesting to think about. I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't freak you out to find out that your neighbor was really an ET.
Well, I think one of the reasons I wrote this book is because the subtitle is Preparing for the New Realities of Extraterrestrial Existence. So, yeah, you're right. People are scared of what they don't know. They're afraid of the unknown. And it's common, but we're only afraid of the unknown because we're projecting our fears of the known onto the unknown. And I don't think necessarily these beings want to do us any harm. I mean, I feel they want us to wake up. We're, like I said about us shooting the Yetis, we're very primitive people everywhere, every country, every race, every religion. They just kill each other for no reason. And because that's because our animal body has yet to kind of listen to our greater mind. So these animals, these are our animal bodies, and I think Yetis have somehow maintained some control over their bodies, like because that's how they can disappear. But we haven't. We're just very reactionary people. So they want us to grow up. These beings, they want us to grow up so we can be part of this greater cosmos. But we have to put an end to war and killing each other and all sorts of the things that, just in families, I interviewed this guy, Marshall Rosenberg, once, who works with, he does something called nonviolent communication, where he was helping the Middle East, countries talk to each other. And he says the worst violence he ever saw has been between husbands and wives and parents and children. That's as bad as anything he's ever seen as far as hostilities. And if we have that in our own families, and I'm not saying I'm not working for my own stuff, but how we expect to get along with each other, and just imagine a whole race of beings that just, I feel, want to help us. If they wanted to invade our planet and take over, they would have done that already.
Yeah,
So,
I think so too. I think so too. So, I think it's pretty well known that the government has recently admitted that we're not alone, that they've known for some time. And I believe they're calling them UAPs now.
right.
Is
And
that the
it's
more?
it's not unidentified, I think unexplained aerial phenomena. And you know why they're calling them phenomena instead of unidentified flying objects. So the government went from objects to phenomena, because in some of the recent reports, and you can look at the, I think it's the Sun online, they released some Freedom of Information Act documents, and the government in these documents are realizing that it's a lot more than objects. There's a telepathic communications that happen between ETs and humans. There's negative effects from too much radio frequencies or radiation too that happen. So it's a phenomena. There's a lot of synchronicities that happen. There's a lot of healing sometimes, not a lot, but there are people have contact with these beings and ships, and there seem to have some healings. On the other end, there are some not so many healings. There's a negative. There's also a lot of negative things. So we're looking at more than objects. We're looking at things that directly affect humans' physiology and neurology. You know, people who are seeing these ships sometimes, there's something called the Oz effect, where there's a sort of altered state of consciousness. They lose their orientation to time and space. They feel a little high or altered, and there's something about being in the presence of these beings that shift people's reality. So you can't just call these things objects. There's more to it, and I think that's the government giving us hints, saying, yeah, this is a phenomena that affects people psychologically, physiologically, and neurologically. So they're trying to explain it all. They may have more of the pieces of the puzzle, but they don't have all of it.
Yeah, you know that they know a lot more than they're letting on. And they have to. The whole, Roswell incident, and I mean all that stuff that's happened. They know more than they're letting on. You spoke briefly about telepathy and talking to these things. Do you believe that there are people out there that have the ability and that are communicating with ETs right now? And if so, do you know any?
I think I have met some people. I mean, for me, stuff comes in dreams. I wouldn't say I telepathically talk to any ETs, but I do know people who claim to talk to ETs. I also know people who claim to talk to Yetis, Bigfoots, I'm sure you've heard about that, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, it still has to come, even if, let's say you're having a telepathic conversation with these ETs, it still has to come through a very narrow band. It's that their telepathic frequencies, this is just my guess, it's like Wi-Fi, and all we have is an AM radio picking up the frequency. So we're from a very narrow bandwidth. I've interviewed Linda Moulton Howe, who's probably one of the top researchers in the field, and she has whistleblowers come to her and government whistleblowers saying, I saw this ET, it was a captured ET, and one guy said to her, yes, this ET, he was ordered to look into the eyes of this little being, and when he looked into the eyes, he started to see 7 full-length feature movies going through his mind with sound and color and touch and taste. And it was so overwhelming, he actually collapsed. This is what he tells Linda Moulton. And because when you're open to their bandwidth, we're not prepared for that complexity of thought. So we have to train ourselves basically to expand our consciousness to meet these beings on the level that they're trying to talk to us. And I think they're trying to talk to us on their level because we're so primitive. It's like talking to your dog. You don't bark at your dog if you want to talk to him. It's the same thing. They want us to wake up to this and we can be telepathic. I know we're all telepathic. I teach remote viewing to some people, like once a week there's a class, and remote viewing means you could use your mind to psychically see long distance, non-locally. And
Really?
yeah, look it up. It was started by the Stanford Research Institute. They taught the CIA to psychically spy on the Russians. It was a whole program. And when I teach it, because I learned from some of the people starting the program, it's remarkable. Everyone can do this. Everyone has non-local awareness. They can't explain how it works, but I show a video from this guy, Russell Targ, and he's saying, can you tell what's in my pocket? And it's on video, and people tune in and they get the target, and it seems to happen all the time. I don't understand how that happens. The only explanation I have is if let's say your computer, like if you didn't know there was an internet, you would think all the information you can ever possibly have on your computer was something somebody programmed there, or someone put it in there. But someone else comes along and says, you know, I'm getting information that's not on my computer. I have this internet, and you say it's impossible because you never heard of the internet. How could you get information that's not on your computer from some non-local source? And I think that's what's happening. These brains or minds that we're carrying around, I think, are as complex and sophisticated as the ETs. We just don't know how to operate it because the handbook of operation has been kept from us and educated out of us by, you know, all the dogmas of media and politics and religion, whatever you want to call it, has, you know, we've had to function in a very limited system. So if children were taught that they were telepathic from a young age, it would just be a natural thing to them. That's my guess. I mean, some people really are, and it's always shocking. So yeah.
Yeah, I interviewed this last week. I interviewed a couple of mediums actually, and I'm going to get those shows on. But another a gentleman I interviewed a few days ago, I was talking to him, and we were talking about something similar to what you were just talking about with children. Children are we're all born with this ability to see these things and to understand more and stuff like that. But as children, as babies, we can't communicate that, and we learn from our parents. And he gave the example of it's like throwing bleach on it.
Yeah.
As you're raising your child, you're throwing bleach on that ability. As they get older, you know, they lose that ability to see things and maybe communicate, talk to people, to spirits and things like that. I don't know how much of that you believe.
No, I believe all of that. That absolutely, I'm totally into it. Getting back to this idea of the internet and all that, and not knowing you have it. I feel it's our right brain that is access to that etheric, non-local realm. So, if children were taught to develop their right brain more, I think this is how remote viewing. I never remote but experienced instances of precognition. It's the same thing. Precognition, clear cognition. The right brain is opened up to non-local awareness. So yeah, ideas come in, precognition comes in, and the left brain says, no, ignore that. That's just your imagination. But it's not. These are visions of, because essentially, and this gets into a little spiritual philosophy, we think we're in our bodies there. You think you're in that body, I think I'm in that body. That body is an avatar. It's like I'm looking at myself on the screen, but I'm not the person I'm seeing on the screen. That's just a projection. I'm the observer of that. So somewhere on another level, you're not in your body. You have a body. It is you, but you're in this akashic field. You're the observer using this avatar on the earth plane to have experiences, and that's why we've incarnated here. But the illusion is that you're not your body, you're not your personality, you're not your history. You're the observer of reality. And from that place of observation, you're non-local. That's how I explain it. I'm not saying that's right or true. That's how I understand it. And so when you feel like you're this observer, you are connected to all time and all space. And that's through this right brain awareness. The only problem is, and children are born with that, but by the time you're 4 or 5 years old, you're brought into school and you become taught just your left brain is taught. It's like ABC, 1, 2, 3. That's all the logical cognitive functions of the left brain, rationality, logic, and this whole other way of seeing reality, the artistic, the intuitive way, is bleached out, basically. Yes, it's bleached out. But
Yeah.
we still retain some of it because there's still artists, there's still visionaries, there's still psychics. So there's exercises you can do to, like drawing on the right side of your brain is a book that starts to retrain that awareness. There's many techniques. You see, let me tell you one more thing. The left brain sees the individuation of things. The right brain sees the collective. So are you looking at the trees or are you looking at the forest? The forest is the right brain. It's the gestalt. It's the whole picture. And the logical mind just looks at 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. So as we practice more right brain awareness, we get more intuitive, we get more psychic, we get more creative. Yeah.
Okay. Now earlier you spoke a little bit about the time you believed that you were abducted. Is that the only time in your life, or have there been others?
No, that's a good question. Thank you for asking that. I personally think that if people have been abducted, they usually have a lifetime of abductions. They don't remember it usually until there's like a critical or a key moment. But generally, it's through families. I think my mother, my grandmother on my mother's side, they trace lineages, and so I do remember seeing. Maybe everybody does. I do remember seeing strange faces at the window when I was younger. I never wanted to sleep with the lights off. I always preferred to sleep with the lights on and the radio going. I still could mostly sleep with the radio going now. Um, so I think there were times that a lot of people are much more lucid about their childhood, but I would have dreams. I had this dream once before this 87 event of holding this little being in my hand. And my theory and a lot of other people's is they're abducting people to take our genetic information to create a hybrid race. You've heard about that, right?
Yeah.
So I think in this dream I was given one of these hybrid children. It was only a dream to me. I cannot say it was reality, but they come in our dreams because our dreams allow these altered states of awareness to interface with them. So it's not really a dream, although our language is too simple. It is something like a dream-like state, but it's not actually a dream. So I did have that experience of holding this child. I did see things. I around 13 or 14, I used to get the feeling that I was being pulled out of my body. It's such a strange experience. What else? I don't know. The solid one was in 87 but I think I've had other things since then. For me, I'm just trying to make sense of the whole thing. I can't say I know what's going on. I can't say anyone is. That's really why the government, I feel, is not coming forward, because how are they going to explain something they don't understand? That's why I feel they're still keeping secrets, because
Yeah, I agree. And it's the same way with the Bigfoot stuff. I believe there's a cover up there that we all believe that the government knows these things are out there, and for whatever reason they're hiding it. They just won't admit it. They won't talk about it, and it's been the same way with UFOs until recently.
Right. Well, let me ask you, I'm curious about your research. I mean, not to turn the table on you, but I'm just curious because when you look into this ET stuff, you look into a lot of it, but do you think Bigfoots are aware of how primitive we are? Do they want to communicate with us? Do they want to help us, or do they want to have nothing to do with us?
You know what? In my opinion, they're fine where they are. They don't want anything to do with us. When I first I had a lifelong interest in the subject. I didn't have something that happened to me out in the woods that made me start looking into this like a lot of people. I just had an interest in it, and when I really started looking into it about 3 or 4 years ago, you could not convince me otherwise that these are just a flesh and blood creature. This is the North American primate that we just haven't caught up with yet. It's one of God's creatures that we don't know a lot about. You couldn't convince me any other. But since then, talking to people like you and to others, and the other experiences that I've heard, it's leading me to believe that there's something else to it. So in the Bigfoot community, you've got the biological camp, which I was, and you've got what's called the woo, and that's the like woo
What
woo.
is that? What is that? Tell me some woo stories, because I don't know what you mean.
Cloaking, like being able to go through different dimensions, um,
Well, that makes sense.
alien
Why,
in alien connection.
why have they never found a body, a dead body? Why they just seem to disappear out of thin air? I mean, I don't think that's woo. I think that's logical thinking, a way logic.
Yeah,
Because
the
explain.
telepathy and stuff like that. That's another example of woo, and those two camps don't really get along that well, and it's crazy. I think that we have to be able to listen to each other. There's something going on with these things. There's something going on, or we would have caught up with them by now. I believe that's just my opinion, not an
No,
expert, as I stated.
I think that makes the most sense. I mean, I definitely think they're biological, and I also think maybe they do are cloaking interdimensionally. Why else? Unless they, like I said before, they have an incredible sense of smell, and I think they could smell human beings miles away. So they
Yeah,
know not to go near those dangerous creatures. So
yeah. A lot of people go out looking for these things, walking in the woods at night, and like they're going to sneak up on these things. That's never going to happen. You are never going to sneak up on them. My group, when we first started doing field investigations, night investigations out in the field, we would camp and we would do what we called a night hike, and that was 12, midnight, 1 o'clock. We would head out and hike a mile or 2 miles and just walk around in the woods, see what we can stir up. And we stopped doing that. One, it's dangerous.
yeah,
And even if it's not Bigfoot, it could be something else. You could fall in a cave or crevice, something, turn an ankle. It's dangerous walking around in the woods at night.
yeah,
So we don't do that anymore because of that. And then secondly, like I said, you're never going to sneak up on one. They know you're in the woods before you know you're in the woods.
right.
I think.
Yeah, I know. I think you're right. I think I think they're real. One more question I have for you. Do you think there's a different races of species? Like, is there a difference between Sasquatch and Bigfoot and Yeti are they different types?
It's believed, and
Yeah.
that's something that I kind of have trouble with because you got the experts, people that say they're experts. You're not an expert, but people that claim to know more than everyone else say there's a type one, a type two, a type three, a type four, and maybe a five by now. I don't know, but I will say when you start listening to reports and different reports from different parts of the country, there's variations in what you're seeing. Out in the Pacific Northwest, where that's Bigfoot country, Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon, California, they tend to be a lot bigger and more bulky and more docile. Down here in the South, they're still big and bulky. They're not quite as big, but you tend to get more aggression
Mm.
down here. And out in Texas, they say that those are everything I've heard from the Texas area. They're the most aggressive. And down in Florida, the skunk apes. And so
What
they
how are
seem
they
to be.
aggressive? Do they attack people or something?
I don't know about attacking people, but they seem to be more territorial. Like
Oh,
they warn you to get the heck out of their territory and throw stuff at you and scream at you and stuff like that.
well, I have heard the Yeti howl. You've heard those howling tapes, right?
Yeah, yeah, the Ohio howl.
Yeah, yeah. They
Yeah,
do
it
sound.
sounds like a siren.
There's howling monk. If you go to like I was in Belize once. There's these howling monkeys, though. They sort of sounded like that, and those things are just monkeys. So,
Yeah,
um,
there's enough, in my opinion, there's enough circumstantial evidence out there right now to, if it was a murder case, to convict Bigfoot. You know, to suggest that there's a Bigfoot. There's enough circumstantial evidence. If you just take the eyewitness accounts, the track casts, they're probably the best evidence. Taking the cast of these footprints with the dermal ridges and the metatarsal breaks and all that stuff. It's those prints are coming from a living being.
yeah.
I mean, that's
Are
all.
there similarities in the prints? Are they similar in their sort of?
Yeah, for the most part.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they say I've heard, and I can't really speak to it. I can tell you what I've heard. It seemed like I've heard, like down in Florida, the skunk ape. Sometimes you'll run into a four-toe track versus a five. Some people say possible inbreeding, but I don't know. And it could speak to what you were asking. Are there different species?
Yeah, I don't know. I've just heard lots of different stories, but I think you're absolutely right. There doesn't seem to be any authority, even if people think they're an authority. I'm curious what Carson means in the chat there when he says Bigfoot has a higher purpose than we do not know. I guess they have a higher purpose than right.
Yeah,
So
Bigfoot has a higher purpose that we
that we
do
don't know.
not know.
We do.
Maybe he can speak to that a little bit
Yeah, but
in the comments.
I want to know what is that higher purpose and
I don't know. I
because
don't
I
know.
do.
Maybe go ahead.
No, I was just saying I do think ETs have a higher purpose. I think they're here to wake us up to the fact that we are non-local, that we have this greater mind, and they're coming in and out of our airspace, but never really landing because they don't want to freak people out. So they're here to remind us, and they're psychically communicating with people, and maybe the Bigfoots are the same as that they are, but I don't think so because they really don't like being around people. So I wonder what their higher purpose is.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But
But
getting back to the UFO stuff, but before we get out of here, we're coming up on an hour. Um, I did want to know, without if you're comfortable without giving up someone's identity,
yeah,
could you share an abduction story that or an encounter that you have taken in that you have listened to someone has shared with you, like one
yeah,
of the more interesting ones?
yeah. As opposed to mine, which is just kind of I did something happen to me.
Not
No,
that at all. I think they're all interesting, but
no,
you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. You know Travis Walton. Have you heard the Travis Walton case?
Yes,
Have
sir.
you know what happened to him then? He was
Yes.
on for 5 days, and I met Travis, and he only remembers a half hour of the 5 days. So, just for people who don't know, he was a lumberjack. He was out in Arizona in a pine forest. He saw a ship land. There's a bunch of other people in this truck, other lumberjacks. He runs out towards this craft. He gets zapped. He gets knocked out. This friends, his crew takes off without him. They leave him there. They think the ship is going after him. They decide to go back for him, and he's not there. There's nobody. There's no person. And so there's a search party going out for him, and Travis thinks that the beam of light that hit him actually killed him. This is one of the ideas. And the ETs brought him on board and revived him. They revived his life force. So he's on the ship for 5 days. He's missing for 5 days. And he's only remembering about a half hour of that time. And what he does remember are these little gray beings. He's also seeing some very human-looking beings on board the ship. There's a book out and the movie, which he says is not as good as his book, Fire in the Sky, which talks about. So out of a half hour, he only, that's all he remembers. And then suddenly he's dropped off at this phone booth when they still had phone booths. And he makes a collect call to his family. And they say, where you been? And he goes, he's been on the ship. But Travis doesn't want to be regressed because he feels if he's regressed to the time he's back on the ship, he'll go back to the part where he was killed and he might not come out of it. So and that was 75. That it happened, and I forgot when, sometime in 75, June maybe. So that's like almost, 50 years or something. So he still has the memory, but he went back to the place where this whole incident happened, and the trees in that area are much bigger and thicker, as if they had more increased growth just in that area where that was. So, and also Travis himself says he never gets sick. So something happened to him, and he's a really great guy, very simple, very humble. He just sticks by his story. He's been ridiculed and, awful things, but I think it's a real story, and I think something really happened to him. And
Yeah, I was familiar with that story. It's probably the best known one out there, but you hit me with a couple of things I didn't know. That's really interesting. It's cool that he only remembers 30 minutes of
yeah,
the 5 days. And he not only, correct me if I'm wrong, but not only he, but all the other members of the party that were there that witnessed, they all passed lie detectors, didn't they?
they did all pass lie detecting. That was the first thing when he was reported missing by his crew. The sheriff said, "Oh, you killed Travis, and you probably buried him. You're making up this ridiculous story." But no, they took a lie detector test. I think each one of them passed. And this guy, Ninja Dave, writes an interest. I talked to Travis about how Bigfoot has the ability to knock you unconscious. He found it very interesting, similar to what happened to him with the ET encounter. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. There's a lot more closer relationships than we understand about Bigfoot and ETs. And I think when we understand what Bigfoot is, and when the government releases some of its more held documents, we're going to see like these ideas of realities and connections and possibilities open up. But right now we keep it all in boxes, but we really have to break out of the box of what we think we know and put that's why disclosure is so important for the UFO community. We want the government to say, okay, you don't know what's going on. Tell us everything you know. Let's lay it all out on the table with the craft and the alien bodies, and let's together as a world community, not the US, but as a world community faced with this situation, get the best minds and whoever, and let's try to make sense of who these beings are, what they want, why they're here, and how we can start to be also become part of a greater cosmos. We've been isolated because of our very primitive ways. And if we can grow up, I think we will have the technology that these beings have, because they're not filling up their gas tank to get here, right? There's some kind of free energy. Just imagine how amazing the world would be with free energy. You have a little box in your house and you just plug everything in and it just runs forever. Just think of how fantastic. And I think that's some of the reason the government doesn't want us to know about them, because the corporate greed of the fossil fuel companies would see an end to their profits. So that's another thing I consider about why this is all held secret. So, you
I've
know,
never considered that, but of everything else, that might make the most sense. But there,
I think it's a big part. And I think it's the end of corporatocracy, you know, being ruled by corporate. I think with free energy, we take the power of who we are back into our own lives, and we're not, you know, subservient to company, oil, corporate greed. So I think that's the big revolution coming. Yeah, aliens are great, and what they will bring us in biology, in science, and health is also great, but being really free human beings to live the way we want, out of the control of these, you know, corporate interests, is really, I think, the biggest benefit of opening up the secrets. No more secrets, full on disclosure. Let's create a new world, because with this new world, maybe we can have the end of war, because everyone will have, there'll be enough food, there'll be enough water, there'll be, this is my idealistic vision, there'll be enough for everyone. So why not create that world and live the way we're supposed to be living when we incarnated into here? Free, creative, enjoy, impossibility. You know, maybe
yeah,
that's maybe just imagine, John Lennon
yeah,
says.
very well said. It's definitely something to think about. And Alan, before we get out of here, tell everybody where they can find you and where they can pick up your book.
Well, thank you. Making Contact, it's on Amazon. Making Contact, Alan Steinfeld. I think there's actually a 30% discount, because they want to move these books out of stock, because it's been out for not too long. But you know, they want to go into next second reprinting. So that's one way, on Amazon, Making Contact. And my YouTube channel, I do like times 1 or 2 shows a day. That's youtube.com/new realities. And I talk to a lot of people connected with ETs who've had experience. I just hosted something called the Ultimate Star Being Conference with Portal to Ascension. Those are people I work with. But look up youtube.com/new realities. Subscribe. Alan Steinfeld. Get my book. Email me if you want at newrealities@earthlink.net. So thank you, Wayne. Great show. Thank you.
Yeah, and you're definitely interested in the Bigfoot and UFO connection. If you ever want to discuss it over on your channel, I'd be happy to
Oh,
come
yeah.
on and talk with you about it.
Would you want to be on a panel of other, like, Bigfoot? You know, I like to do panels, but
Yeah,
yeah,
we can do that.
I'll definitely let you know. How did you find out about me? What did you just see me?
Oh, Kyle Yates.
Oh yeah, Kyle. Yeah.
Kyle, he reached out to me and I went on his show first, and then he came on mine, returned the favor, and he gave me a couple of people to reach out to, and you were the first one.
Oh, great, great, great. Yeah, check out my book, Carson. But Kyle Yates is the guy who went into the inner earth. Or is that the guy?
They call him Coyote. I'm not sure. He does a podcast.
What was his story? Was it the
Uh,
inner?
he's a podcaster. He was into paranormal ghost hunting and stuff, but he's not doing a podcast on that now. He talks to a wide variety of people.
All right, I know the name. But yeah, yeah, I think I know. But anyway, thanks so much. Yeah, check out my book. I think people will like it, because, like I say, no one has the whole answer, just like in the Bigfoot community. But this is a collection where the reader can decide, like, what makes sense. What are the pieces of the puzzle? You know, the story of the elephant and the blind man. Let's put it all together and see what we come up with. So that's the only way to understand this, is from many different perspectives. So
Yeah,
thank
I
you.
agree. I agree. All right, Alan, thank you so very much, sir. Have a good evening, and we'll be in touch, okay?
Thanks so much, dude. Yes.
Thank you. All right, guys. How about that? Interesting show tonight. And Alan, I know you're still backstage and you can hear me. Hang out. If you've got a few minutes, hang out. Let me close out the show. I want to ask you something. All right, guys. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to hang out. Didn't have as big an audience as we normally do. I don't know if there's something going on tonight, but no, the ones that hung out, I appreciate it. Guys, be good to each other. Take care of each other. And until next time, I will see you. Be good, guys.